One complete playthrough later, and I'm ready to talk about Dragon Age The Veilguard. Greetings gamers everywhere, I'm Swip92 and Dragon Age Veilguard has been quite a journey, and I felt that this was really one of those games that I needed a full playthrough to really evaluate the full game, like in a fair way, yeah. To complete a game before reviewing it is always my goal, but so many games just, especially today, they take so long that you just don't have the time. Especially for someone who's me, who's just doing this as a hobby. I don't really have the time to completely play a game before I review it, but this was one of those games that I felt I need to do that. My first playthrough that I did clocked in at around 60 hours. And that's with doing all the side quests that I could find, all the companion quests, and trying to find every secret in the game, which I definitely did not do. Oh, and of course I tried to find as many loot chests as I could, although I did not find all of those either. This first playthrough I played as a rogue ranger, so my bow was the main weapon that I used. I played on normal difficulty. So this video is gonna be long, so I'm gonna try to structure this in sections so that I don't ramble all over the place. And we're gonna start with the most obvious, the story. Well, I do say basic here because, well, the story is the first thing that's gonna come to mind when you think about Dragon Age. And the story here it's good, but it's a bit used. You could say that it's been done before. Not that that's a bad thing, but let's get into it. It all starts with you, Varric, and Harding, the scout from Dragon Age Inquisition, hunting Solas, the elf mage from Dragon Age Inquisition. Now he wants to tear down the Veil being the barrier separating the world from demons in the Fade, and the Fade being the world where you go to dream, and it's also the place where demons reside. Now the intro is short, and it introduces the characters in a good way, I would say. Both you yourself and the first companions that you get. Now, as any Dragon Age intro, I guess, or tutorial, it doesn't go exactly to plan here. And yeah, you interrupt Solas' ritual that you were supposed to do, but doing that, well, you released two ancient elven gods. And of course they are blighted, because why not? Which means they are even bigger pain in the behind for the world. And this becomes the main plot throughout the entire game, which they do have a nice way of integrating a lot of things into the main plot line, even the side quests and side quests linked to companions, which I think is a good way of doing the side quests. It just isn't fetch quests and filler quests for the sake of it. It's actually integrated into the story. It's because of the story that these side quests have appeared. It builds on the same kind of story that Dragon Age Origins also has. Bring a bunch of different people together and just get an army. Get a big army and just rush the bad guys, or kill the bad guys. It's a very grand scale. I think the Veilguard is on a bit bigger scale in some ways, but there are some things in the end battle that is not as epic as Origins did. So in that regard I do prefer Origins, but exactly what? That's hard to pinpoint actually. But what I do like about the hero's journey in this game is that you are not the only one on that journey. Because as I said, the companion quests also kind of goes into the main plotline. So practically the whole team is. Companion quests aren't mandatory. Well, not all of them at least. Some do have a kind of, what shall we call it, a objective tied into the main campaign because of personal stuff. Like they have personal issues that needs to be overcome because so that they can actually focus on the task at hand. Now, this is done to help them focus on the task, but, well, there are a lot of little things in the companion quest that do take a different turn, that you're just relaxing with the companions. And I do like the atmosphere of that, but why? I mean, the whole world is going down, basically. We have limited time in the in-game universe, at least. There is a limited time until the world is ending, so why take the time to just go to the beach or things like that, you know? But I do think that it's a valid reason, because you would want your companions and everyone on a team to be focused on the task at hand, on the main thing, not be distracted by side things. So I do understand why they went with this kind of way, but at the same time I can't help but think that there are some things they could have done better. Yeah. So, let's take a look at the team. I've spoken about the team and I've talked about their quest, but let's really look into them. All in all, there are 7 companions in the game and a lot of other side characters. All of them are well voiced, in my opinion. All companions have their own backstories, missions, quirks and skills, of course, just like any other Dragon Age game. Now, I think the companion missions in their overall progression is well done, especially how they tie into the main plotline in some ways. Not all of them does, but many of them do. You really get to know them as well during these side missions. Some of these side missions are just conversations, and some of them are just quests where you follow your companion around a small area where you do things. It's just you and that specific companion that you're doing the quest for. So it's not a go to this place, talk to the companion, and then kill a bunch of stuff and then resolve the issue. Which I do appreciate that not every quest is like that, but unfortunately all of these companion quests can drag on for quite a bit. And their quest line, the whole quest line for the companions basically span the entire story campaign. Almost, so there's a lot to do. And as I said, most quests, I guess, with a companion are just that. They are, that I mentioned, just conversations. Now, of course, these can be skipped. Just press spacebar or spam spacebar and you can skip right through this. I get why the developers did this and what they're trying to get through this, and these conversations and these short quests where you just follow the specific companion are really nice. I do like them, especially on my first playthrough. You really get to know the characters and you really get to develop like a bond with them. But it can feel so long, especially towards the end, or even early on if you're that kind of person. But yeah, they can drag on and it can feel really, really stretched out. It feels more natural in that regard, that it's more natural progressing than just talking to them 3 times and then suddenly you're having sex, you know, like in some games. Now, I will say that everything looks and sounds great, but when every conversation is so long, well, let's just say that on a second playthrough you will be skipping and probably cut the time of your playthrough by at least 25 to 30% at least. All in all, There's good quests and companions, but they can really drag on the entire
Easiest way to get
playthrough
there.
time.
Not as much.
This fragment might tell
Now,
us more.
what about Rook, the main character? No matter what you call your character, he will be, or she will be called Rook. And the voices I've seen, I think they're really good. They are well voiced. Yes, no matter which voice you're choosing, male or female, they're well voiced, and I think the animations during cutscenes are also very well done in most cases. There are instances where some mouth movements can be weird when they're talking, but it doesn't ruin the cutscene or anything. Now, the character creator is also well done, and there's a lot of options in all of the different areas that you can do. I don't know much about the, should we say, controversial options like the chest scars after operation, but let's move on from that. Honestly, that one doesn't matter. Use it or don't. Move on. Oh, and of course, pronouns are there, but honestly, I don't get the hate for it. Pick one, go on with your life. Honestly, it's just, yeah, do that, move on. But as Rook is your character, I feel like I must talk about the dialogue here, because this is where the game falls apart the most, I think. The dialogue in many instances are way too modern, way too modern. There's slangs like nice, come on, fucking this. Instead of, I loved the first game where they say sod it all instead of fuck it all. It's just, it adds a little bit extra there. It's just, there's so many modern slangs that I go nuts.
Did you want a drink? I promise not to let Viago near it.
Immersive breaking, I could even go there, yes. Now, this critique is mostly aimed at the companions, honestly, because as most other NPCs are generally fine, as well as Rook. Rook does have some, well, slang words thrown in there, but most of them come from the companions. Now, some companions are worse than others when it comes to this. Now, one of the first companions you get, an elf called Balara, is really talkative. She likes to talk and she stumbles when she talks. She's that kind of nervous and awkward character that no game or movie really needs, in my opinion. That kind of character just talking and talking and talking and talking, and then they suddenly say, "Oh, I'm babbling on now. I should stop," and then and they continue to babble on, and then they correct themselves again. And you zoned out a minute ago, at least. Now her personal questline is pretty decent. I like that one. That one is there's no issue with her personal questline because she doesn't talk as much in that one actually. Her lines don't go on for all eternity. It's the in between the main. It's in between the action-oriented quests, like the ones where you actually have to do something, that she talks and talks and talks, especially if she's interacting with another character in some cutscenes, or if you're talking to one companion, another companion might be there to talk as well. So if she's there, yeah, she's gonna talk. And she's gonna stumble. And she's gonna fall back on her first point that she rambled on 10 minutes ago or something. I don't like that kind of character. She herself is an okay character, but the way she's talking and all of that, it feels too modern. It feels like that modern teenage character that just go crazy at.
Look, another one of those magical
Now, what
beans.
bothers me most with dialogue, I think, though, is choices. The fundamental part of this dialogue system, a fundamental part of Dragon Age, the choices. From playing through the game once and starting a second run, now the choices don't seem to have that big of an impact on things. They do have impact, but some choices are bigger than others, and they do change some stuff in a big way, but not necessarily in a big, meaningful way. There's one early on example I can get, which doesn't spoil too much. There is a small village which has a mayor, and this mayor kind of sold out the town for money and blah blah blah. You know, good old stuff. And in the end there, you can choose between either leaving him be trapped where he is, which means he would probably die, or you can free him. Freeing him makes, I think, one or two companions agree with you, and I think that's about it. I don't think you get a reward or anything for that. Leaving him there will two companions I believe. I think you have 3 with you at that time, so 2 of them will agree with you. And later on there will actually be a quest related to that mayor, where you're discovering bodies in a forest, and it all leads to a darkspawn, which is the mayor who has been corrupted and turned into a darkspawn, which is a really cool thing, but it doesn't really affect the game that much. Now granted, that is a very small choice in the overall scheme of things, but most of the time when you get a dialogue option, it's mostly 3 choices: the supportive, the joker, and the no-nonsense, straightforward response. And basically, all 3 of them are the same. All 3 convey the same message. You could say that the supportive is more feeling-based, is more supportive and talks about feelings in a kind of a way of like, oh, I understand, I'm sorry, blah blah blah. The joker is, oh, I'm sorry, but think about it this way, ha 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 ha. And the straightforward no nonsense is like, yeah, we just have to get over it and move on. That's kind of, I understand your frustration, but we need to move on now. So all of them are supportive in a way, but some more than others. Now, in some cases, the choices are portrayed more neutral, and these are reserved for more impactful choices, I would say, but in the end, it doesn't really make too much of a difference in many cases, and this is something that I truly think the game is lacking. Now, with companions, you are always supportive in a way. Maybe not always in a way that they fully support you. They never get mad at you. They barely even raises their voices at you. You can't really disagree with anyone in that way. You can just say, oh, I'm careful because of this, instead of saying, oh, I support this choice that you have made to a companion. Instead of supporting a companion, you can maybe say, oh, I'm a bit hesitant, or I'm a bit reserved, or something like that. I mean, I remember playing Dragon Age Origins and having companions getting furious at me, or like really furious at me, screaming at me for doing something, for some kind of decision, that is, and even attacking me for specific actions. So that was incredible. The first time I played Dragon Age Origins, none of them did that, but on other playthroughs I've done, yeah, they attacked me for some reasons, or for some actions. I was like, whoa, what the hell happened now? Let me put it this way for Dragon Age Veilguard. There doesn't seem to be any stakes involved with the dialogue system. No matter what you choose, the end result will be the same in most cases. I do encourage everyone to try to get a full playthrough on the first go, so that you can experience the full game. I can't really support this dialogue mechanic that I have here, because it's lacking in so many ways. Of course, I'm planning to try a few different endings to see what will give what. And I'm also planning on doing a video where I can see if I can get the worst kind of ending That's gonna be interesting. So, let's leave the dialogue system for now and let's talk about something a bit more fun, I guess. Moving on to combat.
If the darkspawn are here, the blade in this
Now,
outpost
as
is
you've
running
probably
wild.
seen from the gameplay here, combat is quite different than previous Dragon Age games. It's less tactical in a sense, but still tactical, and much more action-oriented, or focused at least. It's less tactical in the sense that you don't get the overview, you can't pause the game and get an overview and move our characters to the sides or position them, but it is tactical in if you really want to tackle the enemy efficiently and as efficiently as you possibly can, especially in the higher difficulties. I played on normal and I had to use the necessary combos to actually do some real damage to the enemy, otherwise I would just be picking at the enemy at snail's pace. I'm gonna go deeper into that soon enough, though. But as you can see from the gameplay, the combat is more free-flowing here. It kind of reminds me of Witcher 3 in that way. So you have your basic light attack and you have heavy attack and different ways of comboing those. And there's also a kind of a shift light attack combo where you hold down shift and then you press light attack on the mouse and you do this kind of attack that's effective against shields or barriers. No, wait, sorry. Effective against armor, that one. All classes also have a ranged attack. The rogue has the bow and arrow, the warrior has a shield throw, and the mage has a beam ability. All of these are effective against the shields. Which was a surprise. I actually didn't expect every class to have that kind of a ranged ability in that way. It also takes away a little bit, but I'm gonna get into that. And as you heard, the classes are the three classics: warrior, rogue, and mage. And all of them has a branching skill tree and 3 different specializations. I had to think there. I was gonna say 4, but 3 different specializations that you can choose between. Now these are all in different parts of the skill tree, so you branch out in one way to get that specialization, or you branch out in that regard, or that way. You can of course go through the entire skill tree, but you can only choose one specialization. And specializations will give you a different ultimate, or if you choose to use that ultimate, and at least one additional skill, or one skill that you can use if you want, and also new passives to pick up. And as you can see and as I mentioned, I'm going with the rogue as a ranger specialization. I'm using bow and arrow and ranged abilities that are based on bow and arrow. Now, I just want to quickly mention that the controls are good in everything, especially the combat. I think the controls were my biggest surprise, because I expected I would want a controller for this game, but nope. It works fine with keyboard and mouse for me. There is one issue that I do have with combat that I just want to quickly mention, and it's that the block, only the warrior using a shield can block for a sustained amount of time. But if you wanna block or like counterattack with a rogue or mage, well, you have to time it correctly, and if you miss the timing, there's a small window of cooldown. There's a small cooldown for that block, because I've been missing the blocks and I get hit and I don't even stagger or anything. I just take the hit and then I shrug it off, basically. But I can't block again until I think the animation is fully completed or something, until my character has fully released her block animation. So that is really annoying, because it does leave you open in a way that just doesn't feel natural. just looks weird. It's just my character slowly putting her arms down and not blocking again, and then she gets hit, or he. This was most apparent with my mage, actually, that I'm going through, which is actually my third playthrough character. Anyway, moving on. You and each of your companions can equip 3 abilities plus your ultimate. So you have 4 abilities with your ultimate and a bunch of passive things that can actually be comboed. So the skill tree does have some abilities that can combine with your like blocking. You can do a riposte for incredible damage, or beam abilities can do a secondary thing, or things like that. There are ways to upgrade your already existing move sets. They won't be abilities, but they can be upgraded to like make the combat more fun and more involved, I guess you could call it. Now, the biggest change in combat, I would say, is in previous game you used mana or stamina to fuel your abilities, and potions and support companions to boost that regeneration of relevant fuel, I guess. But in Veilguard, you have to charge up a meter if you're playing rogue or warrior, rage or momentum. Mana is also regenerative, but it's regenerative in a different kind of way, where attacking does regenerate mana, especially if you have picked some passive that does that, but you also have passive mana regeneration. So you will always enter combat with full mana. This is not the same for the rogue or the warrior, which it's weird. You just wanna open with an ability, seriously, with a powerful ability. Just go in there, wreck. But no, with the warrior you have to actually go in, hit a few times, and then you have enough rage to fuel an ability. It's not a bad way of doing combat. It just doesn't feel like Dragon Age.
Like I said,
And some of your companions, though, they don't have to do this, of course. All of their abilities are cooldown based, which can be reduced in different ways, but yeah, it doesn't feel Dragon Age. Just taking the fact that you only have 3 abilities plus an ultimate ability doesn't feel like that. And the fact that you only have 2 companions running around with you instead of 3, so that the complete group is 4.
we have to get them out of there.
Now the complete group is 3 instead of 4, which is also a minor thing, but it does take away something that makes it feel less Dragon Age. Now, each of the companions does have their own skill tree, so you can customize those a little bit. And again, here is where they deviate from previous Dragon Age. Every companion except for the 2 tanky companions have a heal ability. So I do like that each companion can be useful in many ways. I can bring any companion with me, and they can heal if I choose to, except for the 2 tanks. But they can only equip 3 abilities, so 1 would be heal and 2 would be something else. But it does take away something that makes each companion special. Each companion is special in previous games because they have to fulfill different roles. In this game, all of them fulfill the same role, except for the 2 tanks, which are the most unique in that regard, as they can taunt in different ways. But more than one of your companion can heal, so the question does come down to which companion does suit your character the best. Because there's combos between characters, pretty much like the previous Dragon Age games. For example, when you freeze an enemy, and then you do something that does heavy kinetic damage to shatter them, you know? That was in the previous Dragon Age games. I love that kind of combo. And there's the fire and putting them on fire, being immune to fire and so on. There's a lot of hidden interactions between spells and abilities in the previous Dragon Age games. In this, however, well, it's a lot easier. It's maybe a bit too easy, because as you're basically told by bright arrows when you pull up the skill menu to slow the game down or pause the game to issue orders to your companions. It's basically arrows pointing to where you, or pointing to which abilities combine with what. And the most boring part is that all of the combos look the same. Damage might vary, but the resulting area explosion that occurs every time you do a combo is always the same, no matter which elements were combined. Because it doesn't matter what elements, it matters what kind of debuff. If it was sundered or weakness or yeah. Frozen can be applied, and I believe you can shatter the enemy in a way, but it's not the same. I do like the flow of combat, and the animations are really nice, as well as the animations for abilities. The rogues, more flippity, kind of agile attacks that you do every time you activate an arrow ability, or many of them, looks really good. I love them. But it doesn't feel like Dragon Age, and that's the issue. As I mentioned, the abilities being only 3 abilities. I mean, in the previous games you could have so many abilities, you can bind them, you had support abilities, maybe you had a shield so you could shield yourself if you're a mage. Maybe you had some passive abilities that increased your attack speed but drained or reserved a bit of your stamina. I mean, there's so many things you had going on. It was more like an MMO RPG than a normal RPG almost. But it was so much more tactical, and I liked that aspect of it. It was slow combat, which I didn't like. It was very turn-based in that regard, but
We just want the Griffins.
companions had a role, and everything just blended together in a way that just it all felt more natural. Now, with every companion filling all the roles, except for 2 unique tanks, well, it does take away something from the companions in their character, their whole personality, almost.
I'm on it.
Now, the tank companions, they do have a taunt, but that's it. They have nothing else to really keep attention off you, which is also another thing that I really don't like about the combat, because you, the player, seem to always be the target of enemies. Doesn't matter if you're on the other side of the battlefield or right next to an enemy, they will attack you even though they have one of your companions standing right next to them, hitting them. They could still attack you, and it's scary and really annoying getting kicked around all the time. Oh, and then the taunts, they don't seem to work on big bosses. I don't get it. Oh, I guess I should mention that you can tell the companions to attack a specific target, but yeah, that's it. They can attack a specific target, but they won't use any abilities unless you tell them to, which I do like from the previous games, where you could actually go into like kind of a setting, like you could program your followers so that they would use certain abilities in certain situations. That one was really awesome. It was a bit complicated the first time I went into that, but I quickly got the hang of that.
Looks like we have company.
Now, the most tactical part, if I want to say something positive again here, is that you do want a companion whose abilities synergizes with your abilities. But a healer is not entirely necessary if you have a good enough combo going
Because I
between
heard there's a Radicals with
your
regular
character
AM.
and the companions
How
I've
do you-
noticed. At least not
Never
on
mind.
normal difficulty.
You can't
On
say
higher difficulty, you
You never
might
can.
want a
Rook,
healer.
meet my friend Rana.
Oh,
At
and
least
you
I
wanna
think we're
hear
friends.
something weirdly here?
Yes.
I do
And
like the
Rook,
combat.
If you're with
I've
Nev,
been
I take it I can
banging
trust you.
on it right now, but I do like the combat. It was one of the things, one of the main
I'd
things
like
that
to think so.
has actually allowed me
All
to actually
If
feel
you
some
have
kind of
anything on
joy
Leonard,
in
I thought
going
Templars worked
going
against
through
mages.
new
This
characters,
isn't
new
the South.
playthroughs.
I work to
So
stop
yeah, I
illegal
do
magic,
like the
that's all.
combat,
You're working the case
but
alone.
Not if you help.
it
There's a
doesn't
rumor
feel
the
like
relic
Dragon
trades
Age.
hands
That's
tonight,
the main
and
thing.
Albin Bataris
That
is
is
the
what
buyer.
A
makes
match to
me
Sun.
kind of
Interesting.
banging
I
on
should
it.
get moving.
Nev,
I like the combat, but it's not Dragon Age. Sorry, but
Don't worry. We won't stop until this whole thing's settled.
moving on.
let's,
Look, you're busy. We've just got
Going
attacked,
from
which means
combat
you
to
won't be too
loot.
sure
That
no one
feels
else is lurking
pretty.
around.
and
That
you
feels
won't
good.
wait.
That sounds good.
What
Reasonable.
can I say?
Now,
Work to do.
they say a warrior is
Where
only
are you
as
going?
good as his
For
sword,
a walk to the
which
spillway.
to me tells me
I'll
that
catch
that
up when I'm
warrior
done.
can't think on
If you
his
say
feet.
so.
So, loot in this game, well, is it good? Is it as good as you warriors
Our
need
trail
it to
is
be?
frayed, but the
Or
spillway's our best
mages
bet.
and so on.
Let's go.
Now, the loot in this Dragon Age games is very different, as you've probably seen from the gameplay here and there. It's very different from the previous titles. There are small and big chests everywhere, and the smaller ones only give gold and things you can sell, but the little bit bigger ones, medium ones and upwards will give you equipment, either for you or a companion. And yes, your companions have exclusive gear that only they can use. Now, previous Dragon Age games have had this, but they were very unique pieces of equipment. These are not really that unique. And they only have 4 slots available for equipment: weapon, armor, trinket, and keepsake. Now, rarities do exist in this game, so you can get some different rarities to your equipment, but to get a higher rarity, you need to find or buy the same item to increase its rarity. I mean the precise exact item, the exact same name kind of item. That will increase the rarity of the item, give it some new passive bonuses, more damage or more armor or whatever. Now, it's a bit too simple in that way, but there are uniques to find that can give you some really interesting builds. So basically you have your common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and unique. Now, and the uniques do have some very unique properties that can really give you a unique build if you allow your character to, if you respec your talent tree, I guess I should say. Respecking is as easy as just clicking on the points that you have already acquired and you will refund the points. So respecking is easy, but would I say it's exciting to unlock chests? Not really, except for those unique chests
Ron is
where
not
I know that
dragon.
there's a unique
So
item in.
you work with Templars too?
But I do find that the
Ron is
most of the
clean
gear
and
you
the
find
information's
is
good.
just
The rest?
useless.
Only
Because
when I have to.
the
still
build that
wet.
you're
Rana
thinking,
mentioned Alvin
the
Bataris.
build that you're going
She
for
doesn't show
at the
rumors
start
unless
is
they're
usually the
likely.
build you're going to do. I mean, once you go into a specialization, you will
Alvin's father
want to
oversaw some
focus on a
construction there.
specific
He's
element,
visited this
maybe,
part of town
and a
narrowly
specific
searched.
weapon, and so on and so forth. And specific armor, specific weapon, and just going on from there. Now, some unique rings, amulets, and so on will give you that exact power that you need or want, but many of them won't. Most uniques and legendary and epic and all of that will just be things that you don't need, and you can't sell it, unfortunately. I would have preferred the older loot system with a few restrictions like they had, but I would have really liked a different rarity upgrade system. Now there is a workshop in your base, the main base where you work from, where you can talk to all of the companions and so on. And this workshop allows you to upgrade yours and your companion's gear to a higher plus, I guess. It will increase damage and so on, but it won't increase the rarity. Now this workshop will also be able to enchant your items with special properties like increased crit damage, armor, ability damage, and more. You can also enchant your abilities. Only your abilities, not your companion's abilities. But you can enchant your armor and weapon and all of that, as well as your companion's items. Well, armor and weapon at least. While this workshop is a functional piece of the game, it's nothing that's really interesting, but useful. It's useful. Because if you happen to forget about the enchantment and upgrading, well, if you're having a tough time, go back and see if you can upgrade or enchant and so on, and if you can, well, that might just change the pace of combat for you. The bugs, the glitches, and the controversials. Well, since launch I had a few bugs that have interfered with gameplay, especially the crashes, but I have had some luck. I think I've been pretty lucky compared to others. Others have had way worse than me, but I've been spared the most. I have had some crashes, but most crashes have been resolved with some updates that have come out since the launch. And other issues that I had with my ultimate ability has also been resolved, so I do appreciate that from the developers. And now, one issue that still remains, which I believe is a bug because no other games I play have this. There's a weird sound glitch in the city of Minrathous,
I am Rook.
where the sound just changes. So it sounds like I'm inside a drum or something. My companion voices companions when they talk on the streets of the city, it sounds like they're in a drum, or their voices are vibrating violently, and it sounds really weird. It's not constant throughout the city, but it's annoying when it is there. It doesn't happen all the time, but enough times to be noticed and annoyed at.
So what's the plan exactly?
That's about all for bugs and glitches. I have had very little of them, as I said. So let's move on to which could be called somewhat controversial. At least it's a big talking point among a big group of the gaming community, especially those who are not in favor of the game, I guess we call it. Let's talk about the Kunari companions. As I'm sure many of you have seen, the Kunari companion is unique. She's called Tosh, and first off, her personal questline, it's good in the message it wants to convey. There are many things in that personal questline that feel very forced and unnecessary. Her quest is about accepting yourself and finding yourself, like your true self. That is a good message for anyone. But things in that questline are done in a very forced way, and it's not in a fully natural way, I would say. We're going to spoiler territory here again, but here we go. Tosh starts identifying as non-binary and starts using they, them pronouns after a few missions into her story. I don't care about the pronouns, really, but I do find the term non-binary to be totally useless. Useless and just so immersive breaking that I just have to talk about it. That term that she uses herself in the game is the only reason why I'm actually bringing up this point at all. If that term hadn't been in here, fine. If they had just been a, oh, I prefer they, them
So,
pronouns.
you've got no problem
Okay,
fighting other
fine.
Qunari.
Yeah, moving on. But
Thank you.
that term, just as
So I'm non-binary.
transsexual or trans person,
What does
it,
that mean?
it does not belong in a
It means I
game
don't feel
or
like a man or a
movie,
woman.
any media really,
If
with
you
a
are neither a
medieval theme,
man
unless you're
nor a
creating your
woman,
own
Then what are you?
universal
Non-binary.
thing that
I just said.
takes place
and
on
I'm going
another
to use they
planet.
instead of she from now on.
Yeah,
If
okay,
this is because
fine,
I have
but
criticized your dress or your
all
manners.
Dragon Age is based on medieval, European medieval
Under the
well,
Qun, the term
times.
for one whose
And the
gender does
term
not
non,
match the
I
one
don't,
given to them at
it's,
birth
yes, it's
was
fantasy,
a
but
cunnilock.
the term
Perhaps you are
non-binary
like that. Why do you have to keep
shouldn't
looking
be
at
there.
it? Why can't you just be happy for
When
me?
Tosh comes
Chakra
out
Goebra.
to her
I'm supposed
mother
to struggle
as
with who I am?
non-binary
Even if I
and
don't
they,
feel like I
them,
fit, even if I feel wrong?
uh,
No, you misunderstood.
her
Then say
mother
it better.
even talks to her about a Qunari
Only
word
never
that some
enough for you.
Qunari use that
I'm
don't
from
like the
Marseille.
male or female
Not like I thought
pronouns.
You've got the arm.
She
boots.
even tells her,
Sure.
Maybe
I wear a
you're
lot
one
of
of
stuff.
these, or maybe
You
you're
don't
one
get
of
to tell me
those.
who I am.
And Tosh
matter
doesn't want to hear it. She
The Anton don't follow the
screams
Qun
at
either.
her mother about
Not anymore.
acceptance and respect.
So,
I get
why
the
did you
anger,
wanna join up with us, Tosh?
but she
don't.
herself,
I thought you wanted us
Tosh,
here
can be
to help you.
bad at basic respect at anyone really. Especially towards the necromancer companion actually, who she calls Death Mage and other names that he himself tells her no, but she does not listen. There's even a codex page actually describing the pronouns, these pronouns. It's completely unnecessary. It doesn't have anything to do with the game. Or, I mean, if the companion were just fine with, oh, they, them. Okay,
We're
yeah,
not fighting the dragon.
moving on.
Vincent
I would
mercs
rather
get
they had used a
into sea
made-up
life.
word
They're not hostile
instead of
unless you do something
non-binary,
stupid.
if they really wanted to
Like,
have that
poke
kind of
around in its lair.
thing in the
Right.
game.
So we lure her out.
But as they have
the lures
to
go in and grab anything
to
fun.
reflect
But you
the
do kill
modern
dragons,
audience,
right?
or
You're a
what have
dragon
you,
hunter.
they have
I
to
kill
use
them when they
that
need
term, I
killing.
guess.
This one doesn't.
The fact that her story is just as the other companions is just as one other companion, or all the other companions, I guess, drawn out doesn't help. But there is one companion who has a similar story, very similar storyline, but it's more balanced and more interesting, honestly. Also, she has to discover herself in a more understanding way, a more relatable way that other companion. Not Tosh. It's not as relatable, honestly. Let's end on a good note here, because this is the last point I want to bring up, and that's exploration. Exploration is also one of the things that made me really want to play the game again, because there are things left to uncover, maybe at least. At least after my first playthrough, I felt that there are more things to discover. And I think I was quite right on that part, but anyway. There are a good amount of puzzles in the game. I do feel like, in retrospect, they're decent, but I would like to see a bigger variety of puzzles. There are also a bunch of hidden puzzles and things to do, like small hidden quests, small hidden interactions that you can do to achieve something or gain something out of it, and I do love that. On my first playthrough, I loved exploring everything. As I said, I try to find every little secret, every nook and cranny. The areas they have created are really nice, like in art style and graphics. I like it. Distinct designs in every area. The cities can feel like a labyrinth, especially early on, but I got used to them and I learned to navigate them to a degree. And while I do love the exploration on my first playthrough, it doesn't have the exact same feel as second time through, and much less third time, especially for those areas that I don't like as much as the the ones I do like. Now, the locations are still beautiful and I like them, but I'm rushing more, especially now on the third time through, because exploration just don't do much for replayability, depending on how much you did the first time. But I do love the exploration anyway. I do love the scenery, and I haven't used the photo mode anything, which is a shame. I should actually try to take some pictures for this video so that I can just put them up, just for the sake of it. But exploration is one of those. Yeah, I love it. But the second time through, I like it. The third time, I still like it. But let's get the hell through here. Let's get through this. And on my playthrough, which I'm trying to get the worst kind of ending, well, I'm not gonna be exploring it at all. I will just be doing the main objective. Yeah. So that's it for this very long video. I can say yes if I'm asked, if someone asks me, do you recommend this game? I can say yes,
We got it.
but I don't think I can recommend it for full price. And especially if you're looking for that Dragon Age feel game, I can't recommend this. As if someone tells me I love the previous Dragon Age games, I love the combat, I like the story, I like the characters, I could not say yes, I fully recommend Dragon Age The Veilguard, because it doesn't have that same Dragon Age feel as previous games. It is a good game, but it's not the full Dragon Age experience that I would have loved to feel and see. And it is a real shame that in that regard. This is, I believe, the third 7 out of 10, if I have to put a number on it, the third 7 out of 10 game for me this year. The two first were Star Wars Outlaws and Space Marine 2. Yes, I'm putting Space Marine 2 at the same level as this one and Star Wars Outlaws. Why? Well, I will probably make a video on that soon. Now, tell me if you agree or disagree with me in the comments. I've been Swift92, have a great life and hope to see you in future videos. Bye bye!